Where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm your host, the Playmaker, and we got a very, very special guest in the building. Swift Sloan, what's up?
What's up, bro? How you doing,
Hey,
man?
man, I'm doing pretty good, man. Everything okay with you?
Everything's Gucci. Excellent.
All right, let's get right to it.
Yeah.
What inspired you to create All About a Check? Where did that story come from?
Well, all about a check came from me and my cousin, Bear. We was sitting up talking about doing a movie, about speaking about the side of the streets that women suffer from. A lot of people, when you watch films and whatnot, you see stories where they talk about, the men going through things and how they paying prices for the stuff that they doing. We just thought it was a dope idea to kind of highlight that, because, a lot of people, they really don't talk about that.
Okay, that's interesting, man. Let
Hmm.
me ask you another question to follow that. What influence shaped your storytelling style? I mean, as far as being creative with films like that.
I would have to say, um, artistically, it's just certain writers, that I admire, like James Patterson, um, John Grisham, and from a writing standpoint, and from a cinematic standpoint, I would say Antoine Fuqua. I'm a big fan of his work, Training Day. Denzel Washington, he did like Emancipation and whatnot. So just I just like to tell strong stories that's drama stories, and with also you got a lot of action involved, where because I feel like sometimes when you put the action in there, not making it an entire story that's all action, but one that has enough action in there to keep the story going.
Okay,
So you add the action here and there.
okay. All right. For the people who haven't seen All About a Check 2, what is it really about?
All About a Check Two is it's a continuation of one, obviously, and it picks up where Diamond's story. For those of you who don't know Diamond, that's Crystal the Doll. And then it picks up with Ava's story, Paris Davis, and Steve-O, his story, which he plays Trayvon. So those main three characters from part one, it follows what happens to them. So, I mean, if you watch part one, then you know what happened with all three of them. All three of them had some tragic things, that went on towards the end of that movie, and we pick it up from there. But then we add some new characters and whatnot. So it's a continuation of a fresh piece of life to it. Let the story go in a different direction.
Watch part one before you
Absolutely,
watch part two because it seemed like he put a twist in it for us. Man, I
absolutely.
love to sit in to see the creative process of how you combine a one and a two.
Mm.
Okay, what made a part two necessary after finishing part one?
Well, I think part two was necessary because a lot of people wanted to see what happened to Ava. A lot of people wanted to see what happened to Trayvon and Diamond. The movie did so well; people loved the movie. I mean, it was that's one of our best performing films, and I just felt like me being classic Swift motion picture style, we had to do a sequel. You know what I mean? So I just thought it was fitting, and I'm glad we did. Two turned out to be a dope project. I mean, the people love it. Just came out a couple of days ago. We already getting great feedback. So I think we definitely went in the right direction.
Okay, let me ask you a question, man. I've seen you from the beginning when you first decided to do film. You got other movies that deal with a lot of different topics. Why do you think stories about money, loyalty, consequences connect with the audiences better?
Man, KB, I think those type of stories resonate more with the audiences. Particularly now we're gonna talk about you got different audiences, right? So I know my audience is urban. Which most black filmmakers talk about the urban experience. Your audience is gonna be very urban, and let's just be real. one of the biggest things when when you in an urban environment, everything is about survival. So it always leads back to the check. It always leads back to the money. You know what I mean? I think it's one of them things, bro, where it's a reflex that we don't even know is there because it's like you waking up every day, you trying to survive, and you doing things that you shouldn't be doing. But guess what? It's all about survival. It's one thing for you to tell somebody that everything ain't about money, but when they growing up and they don't got money, it's like, okay, try to tell that to somebody, they waking up and they stomach in their back, their kids don't got no food on the table. So I mean, I understand that because I think everybody that comes from the environment that we do, that resonates with them and they can identify with that. I think everybody been up against that at some point. Nobody in the inner city I know grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth. That is why, you know, those type of stories resonate the most. I mean, it's case in point. Like I remember me and you talked about A Good Day for Everybody, a great story. You called me and said, "Man, this movie really had me captivated." And you said the way you put this together, the scoring, everything. You said, "Bro, I felt like I was at a movie theater." You know what I'm saying? And I felt the same way about it. And that story derived from, for those who don't know, A Good Day for Everybody arrived from the George Floyd incident. So that was a film that we did. We wrote it based on, what happened to him. And we was just trying to talk about the experience of a black mother in America, what she goes through when she loses a child, right? And of course we had to add the theatrics to it and whatnot, and the stuff that happened in the basement and all of that. But
Hmm.
those that was put in place for us to try to illustrate to the audience, give her some time to get all her thoughts and feelings out. Great movie. The movie did good, but it didn't do as good as we thought it would. It didn't do as good as Circumstances series, All About a Check, and some other joints.
So why did you think that?
I believe that story wasn't about whole survival instinct, about let's wake up and hustle. It was a lot of messages in that, man. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? And I don't want to say this, but I got to. It's like, a lot of times, bro, our people, they don't want to hear that kind of stuff. It's like, you can, it wasn't a pro black movie.
Right.
The movie wasn't pro black at all. You watched it, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? It was a lot of messages in there, and people really don't want to hear nothing about no pro black.
So when you say people, are you talking about an age demographic? Basically, because I was entertained by the movie. Once upon a time, coming from the streets, kind of looked at the movie as being a breath of fresh air, really.
Hmm. And listen, so did I. I agree with you, but you got to understand, we coming from a certain level of maturity, right? An audience that haven't matured to that level where they can appreciate cinema, where it's not just all about shoot 'em up, bang bang, women, guns, and everything that come with the streets. Which is nothing wrong with them stories either, because it's messages in them as well. You know what I'm saying? Just like All About a Check, 1 and 2 is we make sure every movie that we do is messages in it.
Okay.
I mean, because at the end of the day, as a writer, producer, director, whatever, I think that you have an obligation to make sure that that you are not only telling stories, but just media cinema is a very strong platform that you have to be careful what you putting out to people, because you literally you're literally in a position to sway opinions. You're in a position to sway opinions, whether it be good or bad. Like this, if I'm gonna tell a story and it's gonna be about um, the streets or something like that, I mean, we gonna tell it in raw form and give you what it is. But at the end of the day, I'm at right here. I also got to make sure that I'm also showing them that, hey, this is the flip side to this. So you're looking at the sweet part of it, but this the bitter side, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let me ask you this: As an independent filmmaker, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced making All About a Check Part 2?
Wow. Well, this one right here. So I wasn't in part one, but I was in this one. And, I played a character, Conrad, which I don't, want to give it up for anybody who haven't seen it. But, it's always a challenge when, you behind the camera and you in front of the camera, especially if it's something where you have a significant role. So for me, just juggling all of that, I mean, I got a great team, you know what I'm saying? Aaron, Elena, Pops, beating just everybody, you know what I'm saying? Great team. But you still, you still have to deal with, when you in mode mentally. Right now, I'm Conrad, you know what I'm saying? But when the cameras go off, you got to be also understanding that, okay, well, let's make sure that we is doing that, everybody's doing what they're supposed to do on set too. You know what I mean? You got to be able to answer questions. You got to be there to, assist in that capacity as well, because that part of it is the production side is, from a producer standpoint, is more important than you acting. You know what I mean? This is a role that you stepped into, right? So I mean, of course, you got to deliver, but you have to deliver a finished product as a producer. So I would say for All About a Check too, it was just juggling, the acting and everything else behind the camera.
Now, Swift, I know you've been real proactive and fighting for a lot of filmmaker rights. And recently you've been involved in pushing for film tax incentives in Wisconsin. So let's talk more about that.
Yeah. So I'm on the steering committee with Action Wisconsin, and what we're looking to do is we're looking to bring film tax incentives back to Wisconsin. And for those who don't know what film tax incentives are, tax credits that production companies, producers, and whatnot get from states, in order to shoot there. It's an incentive to shoot there, and the incentive of that is to stimulate industries. Whether it's the hospitality industry, the transportation industry, the restaurant industry, whatever industry, is there to stimulate the industries and the environment, and it's also there to support filmmakers. And because filmmakers isn't just actors, producers, directors. You got grips, you got audio techs, you got just everybody behind the camera. Set designers, makeup artists, just everything. So with the film tax incentives, what we're looking to do is bring that back here. We're looking to bring it here so Wisconsin can be at the forefront and we can play in the game and be in the pool with everybody else, all the other states across the nation that have tax incentives. And, they have production companies that want to come shoot there at these places. We've spoken to a lot of different producers who want to shoot in Wisconsin, but when you're dealing with studios, you're dealing with these bigger budgets and whatnot. I mean, people just want to make sure that they got some type of cushion when they invest in their money. So, the tax incentives, it'll be good, for us to bring it here. The governor, he's on board right now, and I'm feeling good about it. I think it's something that we're gonna be able to accomplish.
I couldn't think of a better person, man, to spearhead that fight because from the beginning, you've been really, really adamant about this film business.
Appreciate it.
Is there any advice that you can give any upcoming filmmakers? Because I know it was probably easier when you first started, but as time goes on, people find loopholes and the industry find a way to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was easier when you first got in. So give the up and coming filmmakers some advice and maybe some of the things to watch out for.
Well, I mean, I think it was easier in terms of like getting products out on different certain platforms because it wasn't so saturated, but the game was definitely it was a difficult role because you navigating something that you don't know about, So my advice to anybody that's looking to get into the industry of independent film is just get out there and do it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like we sitting right here right now. My man chose to do a podcast slash, interview program, and it's like, as long as I know you, I mean, it's like the man in many hats. It's like, okay, I catch you this month, you doing this, couple months down the line, you like, hey, I added this to the resume. So it's like you just gotta do it. You can't be a talker. You know what I'm saying? And don't think that you have to step right out the gate, and you might not have $150,000 to shoot your first movie. You know what I'm saying? I shot my first one with 25, right? So you just gotta really just decide to say, if this is something you gonna do, just know that it's gonna be one of the hardest things you ever done. Now, the difference between when I first shot my first film in 2016 versus now 9 years later is you have a lot more tools available to you, equipment or information out there. It's case study out there. You have data available to you from people who've done it, because that was pretty much around that time, maybe a year into it, in a year before prior, or that era was pretty much the beginning of, when I started, that was the beginning of the digital era of filmmaking. Of course, you always had independent filmmakers. You had Robert Townsend, you had, who was that, Gordon Parks, right? KB
Mm-hmm.
Gordon Parks, he shot Superfly. You had, of course, the black exploitation movies, Spike Lee, all of that, but that was independent. But when you talking the new independent, we talking the digital era.
Mm-hmm.
And that era that I stepped into was the beginning. Literally, we was right at the beginning of the digital, a new frontier into independent producers, and it went from theatrical, you gotta go with the DVD releases and all of that, to digital. So my point in me saying that is that you got the information that's out there. I mean, you got 10 plus years of people doing it. So find somebody who that's doing it and they've done it well. Somebody you look up to. If it's a filmmaker or director, producer, writer, whatever, that you like the work that they've done, even actors. I mean, reach out to them, contact them, and see, if it's, if you can shadow them. Just get out there and just do it.
Let me ask you a question. Does this era of filming right now remind you of the black exploitation films of the 70s?
What's funny, bro, is in a way it does, because that was a time when, I mean, obviously, I wasn't in the 70s. I don't remember them making those movies, but I remember watching them in the 80s and 90s. But what I do know is that, just from me watching and me studying films and movies and the transitions of the industry, is that was a time when a lot of black filmmakers, Hollywood gave them a shot, because they shot Superfly, and they seen what Gordon Parks did with Superfly. And they like, wow, so these cats can actually making this type of, they can actually produce this and create this type of revenue from these films. And I mean, that opened up a whole door. So I think that you are correct. I think that we living in a time now where, it's still independent, and instead of it being, film where, it's theater and stuff like that, it's all digital. So it's this same type of program, and of course, you got, people have seen the success that independent filmmakers have right now. And I think a lot of folks, they like the idea of being able to own your IP. I think a lot of people like the idea of being able to own your IP, and the idea of you being able to have control over your creativity. So I definitely would say that, because it's like, man, I love independent movies, because they don't really, what I like about independent movies is they don't have a muzzle on them. You getting a raw story.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm not talking about the production value. That's another question. That's another idea. I'm talking about the actual stories. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's like you can even go from, let's just be real, I'm not knocking them, but you can go to, let's take a story that BET might shoot, right? You know, a lot of those stories, and nothing is wrong with that, but they're very watered down. You know what I'm saying? When you're talking about, you can tell that this story was specifically made for a network television or something like that.
Right. Okay. Now, man, I know every film you done shot, and they all your babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which one of the projects were you most excited to work on?
Wow. I'm most excited. Um, I, that's a good question, bro. Most excited.
They all your babies, and
You
I
know
know
what?
that.
I'm gonna tell you something. The one I was most excited to work on was
Maybe the
Circumstances.
triplets. The triplets, man. They
The
all your
triplets.
kids, so we gonna call
Yeah,
1, 2, and 3 your triplets, man.
yeah,
And you got a set of twins with all
yeah.
about a check.
Okay.
Okay. So what about the other siblings, man? Which one of your babies did you enjoy working on the most?
The first one, Circumstances.
Okay.
And the reason why, because I mean, I was excited about actually doing it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, actually learning the process. I mean, you talking about, man, I literally learned so much of, I didn't know what I was doing. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying? I had been to film school and whatnot, but I didn't know what I was doing.
So
You know
was
what I'm
it the
saying?
whole thought of learning new things that excited you?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, it was that in addition to me actually seeing the book come to life.
Mm.
Seeing the book come to life. You know, that was, it was, the Circumstances was based on my first book. So it's like I'm literally watching what I wrote turn into a movie, and that's why I wrote the book.
Okay.
You know, so, but I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love making all of them. I mean, man, we have fun with these movies. You know what I'm saying? You done been on set with us. You know, you done had some fun with us and watching, making them and stuff. You know, it's every movie is a different experience, man. So I loved all of the experiences. But you know, when you talk about the most exciting, it would have to be that, because that's just feelings and emotions. I can tell you feelings and emotions that I had throughout the whole process that I still remember to this day. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Man, so far you've had a great career. Where do you see it going in the next 3 years?
Well, I mean, right now we just released our 11th movie, you know, and and to be honest, I didn't know that we would get here this quick. So I don't really know where I see it, but I definitely see growth. I see us being bigger and better, and I definitely see these projects, touching people, continuing to touch people's lives, and educating and entertaining. So, all about the upward trajectory, whatever that might be.
Okay. Hey man, listen. It was a great time talking to you, Swift.
It's always a pleasure, bro.
Thanks for coming to Cold Red. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Definitely fire.
You know what I mean? So all about a check too. Y'all make sure y'all go check that out. But
That's
before
right.
y'all check that out, y'all gotta go check out part 1.
That's right. All
Because if
about
you
a
don't
check
check out
too.
part 1, what's the use of watching part 2, man? It ain't gonna make sense to you. So you're gonna end up watching it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
But we want them. How many times we want them to watch it, Swift?
As many times as you can stand. Run that up.
Let's go, man. Cold Red. I'm the playmaker. That's Swift Sloan, and we out of here.
My man.